And a pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, Devils fans. And what is going on? As always, it is your host, your best friend, your confidant, and your number one source, Neil Villapiano. And welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Sports Wire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your certainly struggling New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you're checking out this episode. And thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. You already know that I greatly, greatly appreciate it, whether you're here on YouTube or if you're checking it out wherever you listen to podcasts. Just know that every single time you listen to an episode, I'm just so unbelievably grateful. So thank you so much. Shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring the Devil State of My podcast and the Hockey Podcast Network. And when you sign up with our promo code THPN and you bet just $5 on your first bet, if it hits, you get $300 in risk-free bet money. It is the perfect deal to get on right now with so many sports going on, not just hockey, but so much going on. DraftKings is your number one destination to get in on all of the huge cash prizes. So again, sign up with our promo code THPN at DraftKings.com. Bet $5, and if your bet hits, you get $300 instantly in risk-free bets. And as always, Devils fans, make sure to bet responsibly. Yeah, it is safe to say that the New Jersey Devils, for really the first time all year, are in more of a major struggle. I know that they had kind of a frustrating West Coast road trip a couple weeks ago back in October, but they picked it up and they were able to kind of shake that off with a couple wins at home. But right now, given everything that's been going on and what we've seen the last couple of games this past week, it's very obvious that the team as a whole is struggling. And we're going to quickly go over what we saw last week. I also want to look into a little bit of what Sheldon Keefe had to say after the Devils' third straight loss in Philadelphia against the Flyers on Saturday night. We're also going to give an update. Well, before that, we're going to talk a little bit about Jacob Markstrom and his personal struggles on the ice right now. We're also going to talk a little bit about Jack Hughes. And we did get an update from someone at ESPN a couple days ago about when we could potentially see Jack at the earliest. And lastly, we'll look into this upcoming week. Devils are in a lot of action this week, so we're going to talk about all of that. So as always, Devils fans, we got a bunch to get to here on this episode of the Devil State of Mind podcast. So let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we will get rolling and drop the puck with, again, recapping very quickly the Devils' probably worst week in terms of play overall in this season. As again, as you can see here from the schedule, Devils finished up the road trip on a sour note. If you saw our last episode with Nick Villano of Pucks and Pitchforks, which if you haven't seen that interview yet, highly recommend you do because we got into a lot of different things. Right before I post the episode, the Devils were getting ready to begin the back half of their road trip. They got off to a good start with that come from behind win against the Blackhawks on the 12th. And then they got a shootout victory against the Washington Capitals in their first game without Jack Hughes in the lineup. And you were hopeful that with the start that they had, that they could find a way to keep that going here and continue to rack up some wins. And they did not do that. And in two of the three games, it wasn't even close. The game against Tampa Bay last Tuesday got blown out 5-1. Jake Gensel with a hat trick in that one. And really the team as a whole didn't play all that well. Jacob Markstrom really struggled in that one. Then you go to Thursday against the Florida Panthers and you gave up, which was honestly a very impressive goal by Sam Reinhart. And that's all, unfortunately, it took for Florida to win this game as Sergei Bobrovsky stood on his head and did not allow the Devils to get that tying goal. And I feel fairly strongly that if the Devils were able to get that tying goal, and especially right at the end there, force overtime, I feel very confident they would have found a way to get that second point just with the way they were playing in that game. So was unfortunate, not really fully upset with the team. I thought they played as hard as they could in that one, but ultimately the chips didn't roll. The chips didn't roll in their favor. And then you get to the game on Saturday night in Philadelphia. And you started the game off really, really well. You got a power play goal. Timo Meyer was able to get it in, and you got the 1-0 lead. That lasted, I don't even think, a minute. And the Flyers ended up scoring the goal that ended up tying the game at 1. And then things just completely fell apart as the Devils gave up 3 goals in the span of 24 seconds, which is an NHL record now. And ultimately, they went down 4-1 at the end of 1, and the game was pretty much over at that point. And while the Devils were able to cut it to the closest they got was 5-3, ultimately it wasn't enough as the Devils ended up getting blown out by their Metropolitan Division rival in the Philadelphia Flyers 6-3. And the Devils, who started off 2-0 on this 5-game road trip, ended on a very sour note as they go 2-3-0 on the road trip. So despite Sheldon Keefe wanting this team to have a much better road trip than they did on the West Coast, ultimately it did not happen. And so again, you only take 4 out of a possible 10 points. And while the Devils are still very much in a solid position, second in the Metro, second in the Eastern Conference and top 5 in the NHL, they are slowly but surely struggling right now. And I wanted to bring this up because I felt that it was really important. And I had several people tell me, their own thoughts. And I think they brought up a couple of really good points. But the number one point that stands out to me is simply this. This is clearly a mental thing with this team. And the thing I'm talking about is how this team responds when, in particular, Jack Hughes is out of the lineup. We've seen this now for several years. What we're seeing right now is nothing new to us as Devils fans. We have seen this team, the moment that Jack Hughes comes out, the team as a collective seems to fall apart. And while, yes, the Devils are still not at full strength, and they weren't even when Jack Hughes was in the lineup, this kind of play was already starting to happen before Jack got hurt. Does that sound familiar? Well, if you go back to last year, before Jack Hughes had his season-ending shoulder injury, the Devils were in a scoring funk. They were struggling. They lacked depth. There was already that issue. And then, unfortunately, you have Jack Hughes getting hurt. The team continued to struggle, backed into the playoffs, was able to win at least one game, but ultimately they had no chance of getting past Carolina in the first round. And you would have hoped that Tom Fitzgerald would have made more bigger moves, especially with the depth, to get this team where it needed to be. And while, yes, bringing back Cody Glass, adding the likes of Evgeny Dadonov and Connor Brown certainly did help, the fact of the matter is that this team is still not where it needs to be as far as being a cup contender. I think they still lack a third-line center. They still lack some scoring depth on the bottom 6. And they still lack a top 6 winger. And these are things that we are going to, as a whole here, as a fan base, continue to harp on until something happens. And we're going to continue to point the finger at Tom Fitzgerald because he has continuously not found ways to help his team. And I worry that he's going to once again use injuries as a big reason not to make any moves. And I recognize also that the cap is definitely going to be a situation. With guys coming back in the lineup, even with Jonathan Kovacevic coming back, you're going to have to make moves regardless. And it'll be really interesting over the next month and a half, what Tom Fitzgerald does or does not do. And I know that people are talking about Quinn Hughes, especially with how poorly the Canucks have played recently. I just want to reiterate something that I brought up again in the offseason. Right now, the Devils don't need Quinn Hughes. They have other holes that, in my opinion, are more important. The defense, when it's healthy, is very, very good, as we've seen earlier this year. Now, I understand that, yes, Quinn Hughes is a top 2, top 3 defenseman in this league. His other 2 brothers are here in New Jersey. It just makes sense. And he's a guy that could certainly be our power play 1 quarterback. But right now, I still believe the path for the Devils when it comes to Quinn Hughes is just let it ride and focus on other areas and how you can get better in other areas that are also very important and let the game come to you. That's the way that I want to go about it. But this is really a mental thing for this team. As a collective, they are all looking at each other and saying, who's going to step up? Who's going to be the guy that's going to help guide this team? And you're going to look to guys like Nico Hischier, obviously being the captain, offensive catalyst. Timo Meyer, Dawson Mercer, Jesper Bratt, maybe to a lesser extent, a guy like Arseny Gritsyuk. But nonetheless, those are guys that you're going to be looking towards. And despite guys like Hischier and Bratt, and also Timo Tulis starting to get there, it's still not enough. This team has to come together as a cohesive unit in order to be better. That's simply how they're going to find ways to win games. And with 3 of the 4 games this week being at home, in a place where you are right now, record-wise, the best team in the NHL when it comes to playing at home, this is a great opportunity for this team to right the ship. Really, it really is. It's a great opportunity with some very winnable games. No game is a guarantee. No win is a guarantee. But considering who they're playing, they have some games here that they could certainly win. But going back to the mental thing, I did want to say this. Sheldon Keefe, in the post game, after the game against the Flyers, brought up 2 very long quotes that I want to read to you guys that I think really encapsulates what is going on with this team and what Sheldon Keefe has noticed, not just from this year, but even going back to last year. And in a way, you could make an argument that potentially he's calling out not only his players, but the guy who hired him in Tom Fitzgerald. So let me read to you exactly what Sheldon Keefe said, because I think it's important. And this comes from James Nichols was able to get these quotes from New Jersey Hockey Now. And Sheldon Keefe goes, I mean, it's reminiscent to the game in Colorado. At different times, that's been us. And until it's not us, that's who we are. So, I mean, you say it's uncharacteristic. Is it uncharacteristic? I would say it is exactly who we are at this point in time. Is inconsistent. There are stretches over this last 10 games where we've been right there amongst the best defensive teams in the league. When you look at it statistically and what we've given up in terms of chances, and there are games where the worst. So that's very consistent like that. When you're fighting an uphill battle every night, then you're not quite sure what you got. And then here's the part that everybody has looked at and really focused on. Keith said, I'm looking for players. I'm looking for guys that can play. We can only play guys so much. You know, we need to use the bench. We need other guys. So you're kind of chasing it a little bit and trying to find some things that works. You're trying to take away ice time from different guys to try to send a message and get other people more involved. And then it kind of flips the other way, and you got to reverse course a little bit. But yeah, we're chasing it a little bit. That's on the guys. They got to do a good job with the minutes that they get early in the game. So here's where what I take away from what Sheldon Keefe said. It is a combination of obviously demanding more from the players. And I think a lot of the guys, especially at the top, have gotten so used to when the chips are down and you're missing out with Jack and everything that it's going to just automatically be a struggle and you're just not going to play well as a team. That's unacceptable. I mean, that is completely unacceptable. And I love that Sheldon Keefe brought up the whole thing about the most consistent part of our team is being inconsistent. That was the case last year too. If you remember, from the beginning of last season to Christmas Day, or really the 26th of December, this team was one of, if not the best team in the league. And then they completely fell apart. And they fell apart because they lacked depth and they were relying way too heavily on the top guys who were not being consistent in their own right. And then when Jack Hughes eventually got hurt, then it really just all bottled out. You know, it fell over. It just wasn't going to, it was going to be a problem. And the team played like it. And while there were some good glimpses here or there, again, lack of consistency. And you look at a team like the Colorado Avalanche, who have been nothing short of dominant since the season started. And they have been so consistent in their game. So consistent. And yes, those guys have been around together for years. But they all understand that even when they have people out, it's next man up mentality. It is. The Avs started the year without Mackenzie Blackwood, former New Jersey Devil. And they rode Scott Wedgwood. And Scott Wedgwood stood up when he needed to. And, you know, it's just so frustrating to watch a team like the Devils, who are very talented, and they can definitely win games even without Jack in the lineup. but they seem to just be falling into what everybody says around them outside the organization that, oh, well, they don't have Jack, so that's the excuse for why they're not going to be good. Excuse my French, but that's some bullshit. I mean, that is some like 1000% bullshit. And I'm sick of this. I'm sick of that kind of attitude. What I see that on the ice, this team is a lot better than the way they're playing. And that falls a lot on the guys. But, if you remember, Sheldon Keefe said, I want guys on this team that want to play. And I believe that that's kind of a dig at Tom Fitzgerald. That again, Fitzy hasn't done enough to help this team. And he has more work to do. And I would honestly argue that if this team once again just struggles the rest of the way, or the majority of the rest of the way, maybe backs into the playoffs or whatever, and has yet another first round exit, I'm very sorry, but Tom Fitzgerald must go. And you need to have someone in here who's going to have the balls to be aggressive and make some uncomfortable moves for the sake of getting this team to another level that they are capable of getting to. That's where they got to be. The Devils, for the most part, have a lot of the pieces you need to go win a cup, but they're not there yet. They have holes that they have yet to fill, and that goes on Tom Fitzgerald. I'm very sorry, but that is the truth. And I really love that the Devils hired Sheldon Keefe, because he is saying so much that we have been saying for years, even when Lindy Ruff was coaching. And he's not afraid to say it. He's holding these guys accountable. He's pushing them to be better. And these guys have to get their head out of their ass, stop feeling sorry for themselves, and go play good hockey. And you can do that starting tonight. You're at home in a place where you have made it a really difficult place for opponents to play in. And you have a chance this week with 4 games to really get yourselves back to a level that you're capable of. It would be great to win 3 out of the 4, maybe even all 4 if possible. Because if you can go from where we are right now to winning 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 this week, that completely flips everything. That grows confidence. And that gives everybody that belief that they can win even without some of their main guys out of the lineup. So honestly, good on Sheldon Keefe for that. I'm totally 100% on board with what he was saying. He absolutely 1000% nailed it on the head. So let's see what the Devils can do this week, starting tonight in a couple of hours when they're at home taking on the Detroit Red Wings. The first jersey game of the year as they begin their bye-bye tour. This is the last year of the jerseys. And the Devils, also, we need to start winning some more games rocking the black jerseys. Again, starts tonight at home against Detroit. Now, continuing on with struggles, there's somebody that I specifically want to focus on that has been the topic of discussion the better part of this last week, and that is Jacob Markstrom. Now, I put out a piece last week on Pucks and Pitchforks talking specifically about Jacob Markstrom. And I said that for the Devils, it is now time to worry. It is now time to worry about Jacob Markstrom. And one of the things that I wanted to put out there that is very true is this. In the 6-game span that Markstrom has played a game in since returning from injury, Markstrom has posted a 3-2-1 record with a rough .871 save percentage and a 3.81 goals against average. Simply put, that hasn't been good. And Jacob Markstrom has always been like this, where he has gotten off the slow starts to begin the year. Is this different than what we've seen in years past? To an extent, yeah. In terms of his save percentage and goals against average, this is the worst he's had at this point in the year since his second year in the league. So it's very easy to come to the conclusion that Father Time is catching up to him and that the Devils should have major buyer's remorse for signing Markstrom to a 2-year contract extension. And while Jake Allen had a rough game against the Flyers, to be fair, he was due for one at some point. Jake Allen has still been very rock solid for this team, but he's not the number 1 goaltender. I don't mind them playing Jake Allen a bunch, especially right now while Markstrom continues to find his game. But Jacob Markstrom has to be the number 1 goaltender on this team. And I say that because he is a guy that needs to play more in order to push through this. That's just really who he is as a goaltender. In his career, he is a game eater. He's a guy that plays a lot. And he's better when he's tested a lot more. And we've seen that many times. Look at just the couple of games in the playoffs. How about game 5? When he's tested as much as he is, that's when he's at his best. So really the big solution or the best thing that the Devils can do is keep playing him and play him more than what you're playing him right now. I get it. It's a risk. But the only way he's going to get out of this is to play more. And it looks like he's going to get the nod tonight against the Red Wings. This is, again, I keep harping on it. It is a great opportunity for this entire team to right the ship. And that includes Jacob Markstrom. And at the end of the day, you're going to need both of these guys. You're going to need both of them. If Jacob Markstrom is truly hurt, if he's clearly bothered by something, then the Devils have to stop doing him a disservice, putting him on the injured list, and bring up Nico Daws and ride Jake Allen and Dawes. But if Jacob Markstrom can continue to play and continue to play at a level that he's capable of, you got to let him keep going. You got to give him more chances to play because that is the only way he's going to get better. And I just want to harp on that because I still don't believe it was the wrong decision to extend Jacob Markstrom. Because if you let Markstrom go to free agency next year, what were your options going into next year and the year after that? You will still have Jake Allen, but Jake Allen is not a starter. He's one of, if not the best backup goalie in the league right now. He's played that well. And if the Devils gave him more support, his stats would look even better than what it looks like now. But do you really feel 100% confident going into next year with perhaps a tandem of Jake Allen and Nico Daws for the entire season? Sure, you could go at it for about 10 to maybe 15 games, but ultimately you need a guy that is going to step up, that is going to be the guy you hang your hat on. And Jacob Markstrom has been that kind of guy. He was like that last year, and I guarantee you he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out, and he's going to go on a stretch where he's going to play really, really well. So while people could say the Devils have yet again a goaltending issue, I don't believe it's really that bad. But Jacob Markstrom has to play better. There's no question about it. So I just want to reiterate this, that while it is very concerning right now and the Devils should be worried, the reality is that Jacob Markstrom has to play more. He has to be tested more. Look at the game against LA where he had 40-plus shots against him and he stepped up. Now, I'm not saying the Devils need to go out and just play poor defense and just let Markstrom try to bail him out. No, that's not what I'm saying. But the more games that Markstrom gets in, the more likely he's going to get into a flow where he ends up figuring out how to get out of this rut that he's in. And once he gets out of it, the Devils are going to be totally fine. That's really what I wanted to reiterate with that. So, yeah, again, if you want to learn a little bit more about the whole situation, go check out my latest article over on Pucks and Pitchforks. Just search Neil Villapiano, and you will find the article, and I highly recommend you read it. And let me know what you think as well. Definitely curious. I've gotten a lot of opinions on that article when I first put it out there, but I am very interested to hear what you guys have to say. All right. So before we continue on here, just want to do a very quick ad read and another shout out to our sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Spinoramas, Michigan goals, and sprawling save across the crease. Live and breathe all the highlight moments with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. And as I said before, bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Again, bet just $5, and if your bet hits, you get $300 instantly in risk-free bets. And all you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Pass-through a per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21-plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Born in Ontario, restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see DraftKings.com/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights reserved. All right. So, well, obviously, I understand that it's been fairly doom and gloom the better part of the last week. I did want to share a little bit of good news and just optimism overall. And it involves Jack Hughes. And I think that this is kind of important. And it certainly is going to make people feel a little bit better about the situation that the Devils are in with their superstar center. So, again, in case you live under a rock, Jack Hughes is now out the next 6 weeks now. 6.5. I don't remember top of my head. With a injury, a cut of pretty, pretty solid cut to his finger from glass at a team dinner. Now, Emily Kaplan on the latest edition of The Point over on ESPN, they asked her about what she knows or what's the latest on Jack Hughes. And according to Emily Kaplan, Jack Hughes might return from his, and as again reiterated, freak injury as early as late December. Granted, Kaplan said this was the best case scenario, but it's still positive that it's even a possibility. Kaplan, would go on to say, the good news is this is not as bad as initially feared. Best case scenario, we can see him back as early as Christmas. More likely, it's early January. The expectation I have been told is that he will be named to Team USA's Olympic team. So again, the Devils in many ways avoided the worst case scenario. In many ways, this is about as good as it could have been, other than maybe a simple cut that maybe he missed a couple of games. It would be great that by this time next month, Jack Hughes is back, because obviously the sooner the Devils get him back, the better. I think it's still very likely that we'll see him in early January, but knowing Jack, he's going to find every way to get back earlier and earlier that he can. And we don't want to see Jack try to push himself to come back too early. We know this is a non-hockey injury, so it's kind of a weirder situation than normal. But nonetheless, this is some good news. This is some good news that he could potentially come back earlier than expected, maybe the 6-week mark when they next evaluate him. But I still think it's likely he ends up coming back in early January. And he'll have about a month before the Olympics starts to get himself back into full game shape and really get himself going again. And it is positive to hear that the expectation is that he will still be on Team USA's roster for the Olympics. So yeah, there's the positivity and the optimism that the Devils may, and I want to emphasize the word may, get Jack Hughes back sooner rather than later. But we shall see. But again, for the time being, the Devils are still without Jack Hughes for at least the next month. So we shall see what happens with that. All right. Last but certainly not least, to wrap up this episode, I'm going to go back to the schedule and I'm going to look ahead. We're going to look ahead to what the Devils have this week. This is the last week of November. And let's see if the Devils can finish the month on a high note. So, again, starting tonight, at the time of this recording, in about 2 hours exactly, the Devils will start the week off with a home game against the Detroit Red Wings. Then on Wednesday, and I will be in attendance for this game, the Devils will be taking on the Blues, also at home, another Jersey game. And then the Devils begin their third back-to-back of the season. I think it's their third or fourth. I think it's their third. But nonetheless, they begin it with a Friday afternoon game. So a Black Friday, middle of the afternoon showdown against the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo against old friend Lindy Ruff. And then the following evening, Saturday night, I will also be in attendance for that one. I'm actually doing the double header with the New York Sirens, who, by the way, won their first game of the year against Ottawa 4-0 on the road. Congratulations, ladies. Hell of a start to the season. But the New York Sirens will take on one of the new teams, I think Vancouver, in the afternoon. And then at night, the Devils will be at home for their Hockey Fights Cancer Night against the Flyers. So exactly a week after getting blown out in Philadelphia, the Devils will have a chance to redeem themselves against this Flyers team, this time at home. And that will wrap up the month of November. So the next time you guys will see me will be around December 1st. So this is my last episode of the month of November. And also on a side note, I want to wish all of the subscribers and all of you Devils fans a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving if you're celebrating here in the United States, or as if you like to call in Canada, just another Thursday. But all jokes aside, again, I hope everybody has a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. I am very much thankful, as always, for all of you guys who watch here on YouTube, listen to the podcast on audio platforms, but also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, BlueSky, TikTok, Threads, everywhere. I greatly appreciate it. And I don't just say it just for the sake of saying it. I really do appreciate all of you guys 100%. So on that note, Devils fans, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Devil's State of Mind podcast. As always, again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Really do appreciate it. If you're here on YouTube and you like what you see, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the Devil's State of Mind podcast, tell all of your friends to do the same. We're so close to 175 subscribers. Would really mean a lot to me if we could get there by the time Thanksgiving rolls around on Thursday. Also, listen to the podcast on all audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. And you're on Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on either one. Helps continue to grow the podcast and get it out to more and more Devils fans out there. Follow the podcast on social media, Devil's State of Mind on Facebook and Instagram, and follow me on Twitter at Devil's State. Follow me on BlueSky as well. Just search my name, Neil Villapiano. Also, my TikTok as well, where I do my 3 things to watch before every game, and I post all Devils content. Also, here content from the podcast as well. Make sure to follow me. I'm almost to 500 followers on TikTok. So make sure to follow me if you have not already. All of the links, by the way, and all the usernames will be in the comment section or the description of this video down below. So make sure you guys go do all that. Would greatly appreciate it. But again, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me on this episode, and we will see you in the next episode, which will be our first episode of the month of December. And let's see if the Devils can give us some really, really great wins here to end the month of November and get some good vibes back. Everyone, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say, at the end of every episode, put those horns up, baby, and let's go, Devils.